everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grew Up. On today's episode, it is my pleasure to welcome my new friend, Daniel Chun. Hey, Daniel, how are you?
Doing great. I'm honored to be on the When I Grow Up podcast. How are you doing?
I'm great. No, the honor and it's all mine, Chun.
I mean,
Truly.
this relationship has spanned over the course of the last 4 weeks, and why not dig a little deeper on a podcast?
Yes, absolutely. I'm really excited. So Chun and I met through my sister-in-law, their friends, and we, for those of you that don't know, you know how I took a little hiatus off the podcast, and I was in California for like 3.5, 4 weeks, and Chun and my sister-in-law took us to different spots in California.
Shout out to
So me,
Somi.
man, sponsor me. No, just kidding. But if you don't know Somi, it's like this ice cream place. It's so silly, but David and I are still talking about it. Because there's just one place in Atlanta, and it's called it's like 2+2 or something like that. And I was like, hey, there is a place like that here. But then David was saying it's not like the gimmick part of like the pumopang. Oh, so they have pumopang on top, and then what is that?
The soft serve.
Soft serve, yeah. So he said that it was the soft serve that he loved.
The soft serve is really good.
Yeah, it is good.
Anyone who's listening, when I grow up, want to be a Somi franchise manager, like make one in Atlanta. I guarantee it'll pop off.
Yeah, no, for real. No, we got to do it first. That's what.
Yeah, this is so true.
Oh man. But hey, man, thanks again for coming on with me and hanging out for a little bit. So When I Grew Up podcast, obviously, is we're talking about people that do different careers. So Chun, what do you do?
That's a great question. I am a account representative or executive, whatever you want to call it, at Dropbox. So to put in layman terms or English, I work in sales at Dropbox.
Nice. So on the very small chance that someone doesn't know what Dropbox is, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So Dropbox is a cloud storage platform. It originally started as that in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. And it was kind of like its first of its kind, a lot of personal storage in the cloud where you, if I want to break that down, if people don't know what the cloud is now, usually a lot of storage is, directly on, let's say, USBs or hard drives or things like that. But now we can put it into quote unquote the cloud, but Dropbox and like Amazon's and Google's, they have these huge data centers where they can store a lot of your information. So it's not physically in a USB. So if you lose a USB or something like that, you can't have access to that information. But if you put it in the cloud, I can log in from wherever, my phone, any laptop, and I can get access to it. So it's a cloud storage platform. And then, it's grown into like a collaboration software and just a bunch of other bells and whistles. So that's nice. Dropbox.
Yeah, man. For a split second, I forgot about like thumb drives and stuff.
I know.
Until you
floppy
mentioned
disks.
Okay, so Dropbox, like you said, is a storage space for people's stuff on the computer.
Yes.
But what was it? You said you're in sales, like account executive. But for me, I'm like, why would you need to sell Dropbox to somebody?
100%. So I don't do sales for like personal usage. So let's say you needed a Dropbox account, you can just go online and sign up for yourself and just do that. I work B2B. So that basically means business to business. So if When I Grow Up podcast becomes a huge 200 employee organization and you guys need like a storage platform, usually the big dogs are basically Microsoft and Google. And so a lot of the infrastructure within an organization is probably going through Microsoft, but there could be subsets of teams that use a Dropbox business platform, or they like using Dropbox because it's easy to collaborate with other companies or third-party vendors. I may be getting too much in the weeds, but that's basically it. Yeah.
I see. That makes sense though.
Mhm.
So what does a typical day for you look like then?
Great question. With the cliche answer, every day looks different, but also the same.
Mm.
So it's gonna look like I can have client meetings. My position here at a sales role is I do the full sales cycle. So I start from prospecting to generating meetings. Once the meetings happen and we go through the sales process, then I need to, hit up certain other departments like the technical department to go ahead and walk them through the tool, demo it, and then go through our commercial team, build a contract, a proposal, and get that signed off. And that's through close. So I'm
Mm.
the one orchestrating that whole process.
Mm.
And so meetings will be different, whether they're first meetings or demo calls or pricing calls, things like that. And then in the middle of that are a bunch of, sales kind of hygiene, a lot of other salesy stuff like team syncs and whatnot. But the bulk of my job is to be on Zoom and sell Dropbox. So that's really what it is.
Oh man, I feel like that is more challenging than I imagine. Because like first, you said you have to find prospects. Like is that something you do personally or Dropbox like brings that to you like, oh, these are the potential clients or you have to
Yeah.
research that.
Yeah. It's a lot of outbound. So, other sales roles could be inbound where you're just sitting and people are like, hey, I want Dropbox. And obviously that's the easiest sell because people want Dropbox. All right, what do you want? And then you could just sell them that way. This is outbound, so it's a lot harder where you're trying to bring value that you may not see, but I'm trying to bring you like, hey, this is what you need, and you're like selling them on it, which is more difficult, definitely. And so a lot of my time is spent on prospecting and um, getting like good email campaigns out there, like all the emails, all the blasts that you get. Like I'm that guy that's having you in a sequence. So if I have Blair Kim on email sequence, I'll have you on for like 45 days. I hit you at these days with this type of messaging. That's me. So I'm that
Oh.
spammer. I'm the annoying guy. So
And then like so from that, like do you get emails back?
yeah, I actually do get emails back because it's
Sorry to ask you like that, but I'm
no, it's a
like
great question.
delete.
Overwhelming response is unsubscribe, but
Oh my gosh.
no, but there's it's not just plain emails like do you want Dropbox? There's obviously value written into it, like hey, you
Mm.
have X amount of usage already in your domain. Like, are you aware of this? Do you need to lock it down for security purposes? Why do you have people using Dropbox? So I help you kind of like contextualize that type of usage on my end, and then we can talk further. So
Nice. So like how does one, I mean, Dropbox is a pretty large and recognizable company.
sure, yeah.
How it, by the way, are they like, where are they headquartered?
So they were headquartered in in San Francisco. That was the main office, but like Austin was another huge office. But when COVID hit and quarantine hit in 2021, they went fully remote. So they sold all their office space, and everyone is fully remote forever.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
smart.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's good business side for sure
Yeah.
because you don't get a lot of like the what is it? The revenue doesn't dip as much just because people are out of the office. So.
But I guess it like doesn't create that work
I
environment that some
know.
people look forward to.
I miss it. I miss it.
Yeah,
I'm that
yeah.
type of guy that feasts off in office type of stuff.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Like getting to know your coworkers and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so how did you end up working at Dropbox? Or
Oof.
actually, maybe we should take it way back.
Oof. Let's go.
Um, oh, and by the way, one thing that I definitely want to touch on is like I think when we were hanging out a couple weeks ago, something that you said really stuck with me and struck a chord was, you realized that sometimes you just got to do what you got to do in order to like make your passions like work
Mm,
too. Do you remember
mm.
having this
Yes.
conversation?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So like let's be sure to like chat about your passions as well.
Oh,
But
yes.
anyways, that we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, can you take me back to the beginning, like high school? Like
Oof. Wow, we're throwing it back. Okay. Okay. I like that. And I think it'll all intersect in terms of the passions and the career trajectory until what I have now. Um, but okay, so high school, like, do you just want me to just go off about high school?
Oh, I guess what I
Point me
want
in
to
the right
know
way.
is
Yeah.
in high school,
Okay.
did you know what you wanted to do? Like as far as
Mm.
majoring or where you wanted to go to school, things like
Oh,
that.
okay, okay, good, good, good. Okay. So out of high school, I was a really good student coming into high school, and then high school hit, and then I just got involved, of course, with sports. Like I played football for a few years.
Oh, you
Dropped,
did?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice. What was
I
your position?
I was a receiver.
Oh, I
Uh-huh.
guess you're tall.
Yeah, that was the only thing that I hit.
No.
The only thing. But yeah, I played football for a little bit. I was involved with like we call it ASB here as a student body. So really heavily involved with school and just having a lot of fun. So during that time, that was kind of like the first time my mom didn't work, or my mom worked. So she was a stay-at-home mom since I was younger. And then since the recession, we were battling a little bit of it. So she had to go work. So I like eyes wide open. Mom's not at home. My brother's not at home because he's doing football or other extracurricular stuff too. My dad's not at home. So I was just playing around. I was doing anything. Um, and then my grades suffered, of course. And so I fast forward to senior year. Um, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do and where I want to go. And I'm looking towards like, okay, I suck at science. I suck at like a lot of other things that are technical. And I like relationships. I like talking. And my brother has majored in business. So I was like, oh, we'll go the business route.
Hmm.
And then something a little unorthodox is I had the opportunity, of course, to go to state school like Cal State Fullerton or something around here. But something that I realized was, if anyone who's listening who's in high school that's a senior, possible chance. And if you're debating on whether to go to a state school or if you think you can aim higher, I would completely recommend the community college route because worst case scenario, if you kind of screw up in community college, you can still transfer back to that state school unless you're like something really bad happened. You probably could go back to that state school, but at least give yourself a chance to transfer somewhere that may be a better institution for you or gives you better networking or just, I don't know, just
Yeah, no,
better
that's really
experience.
good advice.
Yeah. So that's what I had as a mindset going into it. Like I could still go to Cal State Fullerton after 2 years and save a little bit of money by going to community college. So I went there, literally head down, grinded, and I transferred to USC after 1 year. And so I got to USC, and before kind of like throwing it back before high school, I always loved sports. My family friend would basically turn on Sports Center. Like he was older than me, and we would just watch Sports Center reruns all day. And
That's
so
so fun.
I'd be just like all up in sports, and I loved USC football. So got into my dream school. I
Wow.
was able to work for the football team immediately doing video. Like I didn't care what I was doing. I was gonna do something. So I got a job recording like practices and games. Never recorded anything, never used a camera, but I just learned. And
That's crazy. Like, let's not pass
yeah.
over this situation right now. Like, so you just went to USC, which again is not a small feat. Especially from where I sit in Georgia, it's like okay, like you just got into USC, no big deal. But but so you get in and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna work for the football team no matter what. Is that what you're saying to me right now?
Yeah, I wanted to get involved, and so yeah, I got
Like
involved.
you like walked in and were like, do you have a job, or is there like a
Oh,
place you go to look for that on
yeah,
the computer?
yeah. I wish I was a little more ambitious, but I actually had a friend from high school that was working on the video side,
I
so
see, I see.
he
Okay.
got me in, and
Okay.
it was a perfect
That's
like
pretty
time.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So one of the core things that I wanted to do when I got to USC was just get involved, of course, outside of I was involved with like the Korean like campus missions organization, of course. But I wanted to get involved outside of that and really wanted to hone in on like sports business. And that's where my eyes started become more open. And so there was a club called Sports Business Association at USC, but at the
Mm,
time, it was really not big at all. Right when I came is when they were gonna like kind of recharge it because I think it went dead for a few years.
mhm.
And so I was, I remember being in a classroom of like 20 kids, and we're trying to, recharge like the Sports Business Association at USC because we're in LA. We have, I don't know, 6 to 8 like pro teams that we can tap into and a lot of professionals that are willing to give back. So how can we not be able to use that resource to encourage and provide insight for not only us selfishly, but like other students that want to get into sports business? And so through that program or that club, got really involved, was able to hold like networking nights,
Mm,
career fairs, like info sessions, things like that. And so that opened my eyes into the sense of before I went to USC, all I saw in Sports Center were just anchors and reporters, and that's all you did. And people that were like GMs, like that's just like you can't break through that roof.
right.
And so
I think
once,
that now, but
yeah, I mean, no, for sure, it's a difficult thing to get break into, but at least in the Sports Business Association, I was able to see like, oh, there's corporate sponsorships, there's like business analytics, there's everything that you have in a normal company just for a sports team, right? And like honestly, I didn't know that. And so
that's cool. I didn't know
yeah.
that either. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
I do know that kind of in my head, but
Yeah,
for you
yeah.
to like kind of articulate it, it sounds a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And um so yeah, that was really good. Where am I going with this? I had a big passion for sports business and basically graduated USC back in 2016 and wanted to get into sports. And my first job, I didn't really care what I got in as, and I got in as uh, basically it was an inside sales rep for Angels baseball selling tickets. So it was a big blow to kind of my like I maybe identity but ego, but I was
Mm.
so laser focused on being in sports that I didn't really care
Mm.
because my colleagues would, or not my colleagues, my friends would be in going to consulting, PwC, EY, like traveling all over. But here I am on the phone calling Blair Kim, hey, do you want Angels tickets? And of
Mm.
course, Angels, even now, they're not that good. And so it was tough for sure. But I loved it because I was in sports. And yeah, that was my first job. Um, yeah,
Personally,
do you have a question?
I feel it sounds very exciting, but 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 yes, I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
see how right out of college it might feel that way, especially if you're comparing yourself to other
For sure,
people.
for
Yeah,
sure. And
yeah,
you have that natural comparison when you come out of
yeah.
college, like, oh, where are you guys working at? But don't get me wrong, it was really fun. I basically had like season seats, obviously, like after a
Oh
work
shoot,
day.
is that obvious? That's not obvious to me. You did?
Well, I mean, we worked at the stadium, so after a day that we work, we just walk out and we're at the baseball game and sit wherever, and we just chill with our buddies, and so it's fun.
Yeah, that sounds like awesome.
It was
And
awesome. It was
if
fun.
you don't do that right after college, when are you gonna do that?
Exactly. That is true, actually. That is true.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're there for how long?
I was there for a year. I was there for a year. And so this kind of goes back to like one of one of the things I would always say starting in high school, because an older friend would always say this too, is it's not what you know, it's who you know. And
Mm,
you can, I think in college and during those technical times, obviously you can like roll your eyes, but when it comes down to it, of course, with technical roles, like you've got to do your work, you got to go to grad school to pass your licenses, do that. But in the end, it's I still believe it's who you know and being able to network with the right people. So even the Angels gig, I was able to get through a contact that I met at USC Sports Business, and then after a year there, someone reached out with kind of one of my mentors that I got with at USC on the sports business side. He reached out, and I was in constant communication with him. He was great. He was awesome, giving me books, giving me advice, and he reached out with this opportunity with this startup called Baller TV. And so I had no idea what the startup was, didn't know the startup space at all, but I was excited because they were growing a lot. And um, basically had just one interview, talked with the co-founders once, had dinner with them, and they were like, hey, come on board. So it's like, all right, I didn't know what I was doing, but it was in sports and it was something pretty cool. So got into it, and I was the 13th employee there. Um, and essentially my role there was to head up basically Baller TV. Backtrack is a platform that streams amateur live sports.
Mm.
And so if you have a kid that's in junior high, high school, those tournaments, and you can't make the games, you basically pay a subscription and have access to those games because we're going to be recording them.
That is so brilliant, I feel like. But so oh sorry, were you gonna say you're gonna tell me what you
Oh,
did there?
oh yeah. I mean, basically, what I did there was I got the knowledge and the learnings that I had from Angels Baseball, a little bit of the structure and this like sales CRM, the sales flow, all of that, and basically was able to implement that at Baller TV. And then basically they had
Mm.
their product already and set, and they were looking to scale, and their investors are looking for it to scale like 10x for that year. And so they needed someone with like boots in the ground, like wanting to do everything type of attitude. And so that's what I did, and
Sorry,
it
what
was
is
crazy.
10x?
10x the business. So like if you guys are making $1,000 of revenue, yeah,
Mhm.
for that year, it's 10x that.
I see, I
Ten
see. I
thousand, yeah.
see.
Yeah. No, no worries, no worries.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm throwing all these weird terms, but
No, it's me,
yeah.
it's not you. I just know nothing.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good. Good question.
um so uh I forget sometimes that you are like the business side of things
Mm,
because you're so into sports too. So and I like am not that like that. Like I don't think my mind doesn't work like that. So it's really interesting that you have been able to at this point in your life, right, to
mhm.
like marriage the two,
Yeah.
which is really cool. Um, and about Baller TV though, I just have a question. So,
Mhm,
you said that we've talked about it before, just you when we were meeting up in California, but like so they stream games, like
mhm.
kids games, like high school games,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So like how does one stream that?
Yeah. Great
Like how does
question.
Baller TV get someone to record whatever's going on there?
Great question. Great question. So the production value is definitely low in order to stream, because what we're promising is there are other streaming companies out there, but what they'll do is, tournaments are big. They could have like 200 teams, and that could span over, five, six different high schools with 3 courts each. So it's like 20 total courts. But
Right.
what a local streaming service could do is just come in and you have your top 2 courts, and they could provide streaming for that, and it's going to be good. But what we're bringing is we're going to stream every court and every game. And so obviously doing that at scale, like doing that massively across like multiple events per weekend, is going to be a very hard logistical and operational challenge. And
Yeah,
so
that seems
essentially,
crazy.
yeah, it is crazy. It is pretty psycho. Um, so for basketball, we just have one. Basically, the way we record it is through iPads. So we have one iPad at center
Oh.
court on the out of bounds side, and we basically employ like basically have a gig economy business. And what that means is like an Uber, a Lyft, a Postmates, tapping into those contractors that are more on demand basis. And so we throw out ads out there that we need videographers, no experience needed. You're going to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday from these hours. And then they come in on the iPad. We give them like, we tell them to pick up the iPads on FedEx. There's site leads that go ahead and distribute them for the videographers, and they're like the managers that, hey, you've got XYZ people that are coming at these times. And yeah,
That's
they it's
crazy.
it's
And
really crazy. It's really crazy, honestly.
like the production side of it to me is like that sounds like a beast. Like I don't know
I'm getting anxiety just thinking about it, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's
I
crazy.
didn't even like when we had talked about it, it didn't even really occur to me like logistically what that would look like. But I realized as you were talking, I'm like, yeah, if you want to do that, who's recording all these streams? Like you have to get
Yeah,
someone to go there
yeah,
and do it.
yeah, yeah.
So that's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. And when you're
But
relying on,
so
yeah,
brilliant too. Like I'm sure there are
yeah.
people that like came, right? Like no big deal. Yeah, I can do that for afternoon. Hit a
Oh,
button
yeah.
and
Good question. Good question. In theory, when it works well, it's awesome. And when it works well, it's awesome. But of course, like early Uber days or like any early startup days, it's wild out there. And
yeah,
so, when you're relying on people that generally need work on the weekends and are getting paid X amount, like close to minimum wage, fit a certain type of mold, if that makes
sure,
any
sure.
sense. And so when you're asking someone like that to come on a Saturday and a Sunday at 7 a.m. and go through till like 1 p.m., or if a site lead is there, their job is to be there the whole day. So it's long days for these tournaments, 7 a.m. to like 5 p.m.
That's
There
crazy.
could be some drop off there. There could be some no
Yeah,
shows.
yeah.
And so there were a lot of learning lessons. When we're going into big events, like these events sometimes are in convention centers with like 100+ courts playing basketball all the way around. Like once Eli gets a little older, maybe you can experience how crazy it gets, but it's insane. And so, um, yeah, it was a lot of learning lessons. Like I know a lot of my job initially was a lot of partnership and sales stuff, and so we were able to get contractual agreements with a ton of partners, and we were going to have the next obstacle of actually trying to fulfill that.
Mm-hmm.
And so my role obviously changed really quickly because we're
Mm.
a small startup. It's like I'm not tied to this one thing. So now I was traveling all over the freaking country trying to like just get people to come through. It was crazy. Like I barely slept. It was nuts.
Oh
It was nuts.
man,
Yeah. But it was
that's
fun. Like
insane.
that first year was really fun because what we were able to do, what we were to prove to the market and to the investors is this was able to happen. Not obviously perfect, and they're not looking for perfect, but we were able to do that at scale. And so our first round of funding, our Series A, which is your first round of funding,
Mm-hmm.
it was a pretty substantial amount, and a lot of like athletes like Shaq, like Ron Artest, a couple others wanted to get in, but we chose Dwayne Wade. And so Dwayne Wade was our first investor, and he was able to meet the office, get in partnership with him. So that stuff is really fun, of course.
Yeah, that's so fun.
Yeah,
I'm like
no,
excited just listening to you.
it was truly like one of those like grind out startup moments, though. Once that
Yeah.
happened and we got the funding, it was really awesome. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's pretty incredible. Man, I know it happened a long time ago, but congrats.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, wow. So, okay. How long were you working there?
Oh, yeah, I was working there for 2.5 years, and then the pandemic hits.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. And so obviously with the pandemic, other businesses get impacted to certain degrees. And
yeah.
to us, that was our whole business. If there are no events, we have no
Yeah,
revenue.
no revenue.
Yeah. So at the time, this was early 2020. We were looking at our second round of funding. We just came off a great year again. Multiple sports. We were not only basketball, we were volleyball, softball, a little bit of soccer, and so it was going to look really good. And then the pandemic hit, and obviously the pens dropped. So they had to go into like kind of crisis mode because we were looking for money, so we didn't have a lot of runway to go with. And so uh, basically the whole company got laid off except the engineers and a couple product people.
Mm.
So yeah, I was like one of the first waves to get laid off. So when I first got laid off, like after a while, I think it was pretty commonplace. Like I got laid off, but I think I got laid off like mid or late March. So that was pretty early within the pandemic. And
No,
so
that's like the beginning.
yeah, the beginning of it, like it was crisis mode. Like, oh, like we were packing up to get out of the office. And I'll see you guys like next week, 2 weeks. I'll see you guys. Next week
Right.
comes along, I get laid off. It's like, oh, snap.
So they were
It's crazy.
foreseeing like what it was going to be.
Yeah, yeah, because they had, emergency meetings with their investors, and their investors like, hey, I can only cut you a check X amount for you to have runway for maybe another year with this amount of employees. And it's a business, so I
Mm,
understand what had to happen. So
yeah,
yeah.
that's unfortunate, man. So,
No,
do
it's
they
okay.
still exist?
Yeah, they still exist. They're doing pretty well. During the time, right when I was about to leave, we were just about to unlock or unleash this autonomous camera that'll basically take off the person behind the camera, because our core issue is relying on people to get there at certain times.
Uh huh. Uh
But
huh.
if you can dramatically decrease that number of people that you're relying on
Uh huh.
just to set up these cameras that'll autonomously go with um, the players and the ball. And we had like an AI team and a computer vision team that we acquired, and they basically created this thing. So it really worked out for them. And they're still around, so it's good.
I'm sorry. This camera. Okay. This camera is basically AI, is what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah. It's like it goes over my head too. It's like computer vision. And so it stitches, like if you place a camera, it's really hard for you to place a camera and for it to understand what the court boundaries are,
Sure.
where to
Yeah.
even go if basketball is moving side to side.
Right.
And so they have all these algorithms and whatever they do on that side. But we acquired a company the previous year to do just that.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Man, that is crazy. Things I never even think about for real though. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you get laid off.
Uh-huh.
And then um what is going through your mind?
Oh,
How old are you at this point?
26.
Okay.
26. Yeah.
So like
26.
I always joke with people when you turn 26, no more excuses.
Oh, yes,
Like
yes, definitely.
25 is like okay. The
Uh-huh.
26 it's like okay, like let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. I 100% agree. 26 was wild. Yeah, like even before I got laid off, I joke about this too, but actually it was like not really a joke, because that earlier that year Kobe died. So
Oh,
that was a
that's
huge,
right.
like Kobe was huge in my like sports journey.
Dude, okay, yes, keep going.
Yeah. So Kobe died, and then right around that time, I think like a couple weeks before that, I separated from my then girlfriend. And so during that time, like
Oh
boom,
Lord.
boom, boom, I was like, oh, like what is going on right
What is
now?
life? Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Man, Kobe dying.
that was
I don't actually talk about this with anybody. Um, but it really like was a turning point for me.
mm,
Like I
mm,
don't know why. Like it just like oh my like it was just like oh my gosh, like
yeah,
tomorrow is not promised
mm,
to anyone. Like you could have it all.
yeah.
And like how old was he when he died?
Oof, 38,
Right.
30,
So
something
like
like that.
that's like 4 years for me, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like oh, it was like mine. I remember we were upstairs in my living room. There was a whole bunch of us. I think we were celebrating someone's birthday or something.
Mm,
And we all got like alerts like on our phone, like text messages and things. And I'm like,
yeah.
this is a joke. This is not real. But always felt silly like saying that like Kobe's
Mm,
death was a turning point in my life. But after that, I like for months I lived differently.
yeah, yeah.
So
No,
weird.
seriously.
But man, okay, so you get laid off and you're like, what is going on with my life?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not only my life, I mean, at the time, of course, what's going on with the world.
Right.
Yeah, just everything,
Craziness.
everything got flipped upside down. So I think, yeah, it was, I like looking back, it was a good time. And I think I needed it too, because towards the
Mm,
tail end of Baller TV, while I was there, it was getting pretty difficult in terms of, just being in a startup and, always taking cuts. Like, hey, you'll get your promotion at this time. Once we raise in the next round, we'll get your raise here. Or certain things culturally as well weren't
mm,
aligning with me. So at the time I was actually looking for other jobs as well.
mm.
So I think the timing of it was good, at least on my end, because it helped me clear my mind. And then obviously through quarantine, um, yeah, I a lot of growth, like a lot of personal growth, at least during quarantine. Um, but then, fast forward a little 6 months, I think it was time to get a job.
Mm.
Once my unemployment checks were drying out, once the economic stimulus was drying out there. So um, I think during that time I started to come to grips of like, hey, like, sports is great. For anyone that's looking to get into sports, it's awesome. And I say like go at it with 100% like passion. But what you'll realize, and what I say when I say all the time is, um, working in sports is 99% business, 1% sports. So in the reality of it, it sounds cool. Like if you work for a team, there are games, there are certain perks that no one will ever have. But in the grand scheme of things, like, you have deadlines, you have certain projects. It's a business. Like, you have
Mm.
to perform,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to do it with full effort. And so, um, yeah, that's what I learned. And so chasing a passion for sports it settled with me that it doesn't necessarily need to be my 9 to 5 job, um, for me to work in sports and be passionate about it, for me to feel like, oh, I'm fulfilling this passion or something. So that's what I realized, and wanted to diversify myself too. I didn't want to be labeled as just that sports guy in the career world. And so
Wow, how
yeah.
26-year-old of you.
Very, very, yeah, very mature,
I'm
very
just
mature.
kidding. I'm just
I'm just
joking.
kidding. Um, but yeah, that's what, yeah, I got into my next role with a cybersecurity firm doing sales. So
Which is great. It's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Um, yeah, it was good. It was a good learning experience. I think it's the Wild Wild West again. And again, I realized like it was dawning on me more and more that how much like we put so much stock into our 9 to 5. And it was
Mm.
making me realize more and more that, yeah, 9 to 5 is the job is what's giving you like money, getting you paid, giving you a living, obviously. Um, but I think growing up and like putting all your eggs in the basket, I was a sucker that I fell into this like do what you love and you never work a day in your life type of vibe, like of finding the exact place where I need to be. If I feel like I'm like toiling or like struggling, like this is not my true passion, like I need to
Mm.
go somewhere else. That's just really not the case.
Mm.
I think you can find your passions in other side projects, or just even the way like you're just learning. Like, I had no idea what cybersecurity was, but just learning that too, and being a sponge, I think that's some of the learnings that I got from that. And then was there for 6 months, and then I went to Dropbox.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, that's interesting that you say that because okay, because when I grew up, for me, the whole point is like, yeah, there are things you can do and like do what
Uh-huh.
you love and do
Yeah.
it well, and
Mhm.
make money and
Mm.
but obviously, not you're not the first one to say this, but um I in the interviews I've done previously, right? It's like there are people that say that, yeah, like I've had people come on. I always joke, who is that person that she was in like accounting or something,
Uh-huh.
but like, yeah, she made me want to like be an accountant because she just loved it so much, right?
Oh
Like she
wow.
really sold me on it. But the point is, yeah, I think, there comes a point where one needs to realize that that's not always the case.
Mm.
But if you find a good balance in your life, to be able to do both is the goal, I think. Like
Hmm.
to be able to live life fully and abundantly, right?
Mm.
Is what I think really matters. I don't know what you think,
Yeah.
but
No,
yeah.
I definitely agree. I mean, everyone's experiences and where they're at is of course totally different.
Mm.
Um, and I definitely agree. Like, you can definitely love what you do, and sometimes, you may not ever reach it, like in terms of your 9 to 5, but um if you are in that place, that's awesome. If you're not, that's still okay. Like I think if you're not in that place, like specifically that, if you're in that bucket, is not to feel discouraged or anything like that, to
Yeah.
be like, oh, let me like jump ship and go somewhere else like super suddenly. It's
Right, right.
That's not it. But just,
Yeah, that's
take
not it, folks. That's not
yeah,
it. Don't just jump
take
ship.
a breath, take your time. The grass is not always greener on the other
Yes,
side.
yes.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
we're so quick, especially in this generation, like, oh, we don't like something, let's just go, let's get out of here. But we got to learn to take a breath, take a step back, and understand what you're doing and why you want to do certain things. um, and yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Take a breath and figure out the why. I think is
Hmm.
really important. And
For sure.
and that's not to say too, like you could be doing what you love, right? And to say that it's not hard is a lie, right?
Yeah.
Like even the things you love is like very difficult to do, and you still got to put the work in. Um, but so I mean, I have to ask you about just some of the side projects that you work on.
Please.
Um, Aside from Dropbox. And so if you could get into that a little bit with me, that would be awesome.
Yes, of course, of course. Amongst my friends, I am the king of side passion projects. I have so many things that I've like created and have stopped, and it's pretty funny. But uh, I'll touch on the first one. Kimchi Express is what we call it. So back in 2015, that summer, I was a junior going into my senior year of college. I was looking for internships. Like that's the year that you do internships in the summer. But I wanted to be in sports, and so I fell upon an ESPN article that was talking about this tournament, this basketball tournament called the Basketball Tournament (TBT), and it was a bunch of like former NBA guys playing for $1 million in a basketball tournament. I was like, whoa, this sounds really dope. And so I just reached out to the people there and it was like, hey, my name's Daniel Chun. I want to help you guys out. I saw this article for the first time here on the West Coast. I see that you guys are East Coast based, and I feel like it doesn't have the amount of like attention and draw here on the West Coast. So I'll be able to help you out. And so, yeah, we got on the phone.
You're so bold. Like you just like do that.
I think it's key. Again, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And
Have
I
you
think,
always been like that? Like just kind of put yourself out there and just see what happens?
of course, of course. I
Ah.
I think one thing that I need
You
to
know
get
that's
back
not
to.
normal, right, Chen? Like no, like but in the best way possible,
Yeah, yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
But
yeah. Appreciate that.
okay, cool.
I think that's what USC at least taught me. If it's not one technical thing, it's definitely USC that taught me. You have to, um, even right now, I'm like reminding myself, like even, what now 28, but it doesn't mean that I can't stop learning or can't stop networking. And so I feel like I've kind of gotten into that downward trajectory of like networking and meeting people and other things like that, just because we're remote. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, during college, I was hitting up everybody, anyone that I wanted to talk to via email. Hey, can I get like 15 minutes of your time on the phone, do an informational interview, and just talk about your experiences. And what you're doing right now too is exactly that, because in a sense, like people love obviously talking about themselves and their journey. You may not be self-centered, but at least like if that goes a long way for another person, being able to pay it forward because so many people paid it to you, then that's their joy. And so, surprisingly, a lot of people would love to get on a little call. And um, that's what I did in college. So any college students out there, if you want to do that, you definitely should do it. But yeah, that happened in 2015. Was able to intern for them. They were a tournament in only its like second year at the time, so it's pretty small again, back to kind of that startup vibes. But the year after, I was going to intern for them again. But I realized during that previous year, watching the tournament, I saw that at the time, how you get into the tournament is be able to amass as many votes as you can. And so I would reach out to you. I'd reach out to my brother, my parents, and just tell them, hey, can you vote for our team on their website? And so that's how you got in,
Oh.
basically. And there's no fee to get in. Anyone can get in, and you play for $1 million. And like, why wouldn't you want to do that? It's on TV. You get free jerseys. You play against professional basketball players. That was like a dream for me. And so I was like, hey guys, I'm going to get involved with the actual tournament. I'm not going to intern. And me and my buddy, shout out Jay, we just were like, hey, we should get into this. And we're like, we need a team name. And he was like, hey, we should call it the Kimchi Express. It's like, all right. And so me, him, and a lot of our high school buddies that we knew here in Orange County made a basketball team. And obviously no like professional experience, no collegiate experience. So a bunch of like high school players that came together and are playing against like legit pro basketball players. So it was a really fun experience that
That's
first year.
crazy. So how many votes do you need to get to be in the tournament?
Yeah, it's a competition. So it's 4 regions. It was divided between East, Midwest, South, and West. And our first year, I think there were only 12 slots for that region. And I think we were number 9, number 10.
Hey,
And yeah,
nice.
yeah, it was funny because people had no idea who we were and like who in the world is Kimchi Express, like legit. And it was that year, I was working at Angels baseball, and like my schedule was work at Angels baseball, come back, eat dinner, and then get with all my friends. Like we had 3 or 4 core friends that really wanted to get in, and we would just set our laptops down here in my house or some of their houses, and we would just go Facebook Messenger, like copy paste. Hey Blair, copy paste. Hey Blair, like can you vote for us? Copy paste. And we do that till like 1 a.m. And so we like if I talked to you for 2 seconds in my life or we had a relationship, it didn't matter. I hit you up on Facebook Messenger. So it's funny. It's yeah, we grinded to get into that tournament.
That's amazing.
But, but yeah, like we did it again the next year, and then I mean that first year, obviously we get smashed by like 40 points by this
Okay,
team.
yeah, so like you guys are playing like pro ballers?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
These
like hard
guys,
for me to wrap my head around this concept because like I don't know any okay, maybe okay, anyways, but you weren't like scared. I guess like you're just playing for fun at this point. Like,
yeah, yeah. So that first, so to give everyone the lay of the land in the basketball industry, like you have obviously the NBA, and then you have their development league called the G League now. But there are tons of basketball players that are out there that come out of college all the time,
right,
and they make money playing basketball by playing overseas. So
right.
Europe has one of the top leagues, so like Spain, Italy, Germany, and you can play in Korea, Japan. Now you can play anywhere, basically any country you name. They have a basketball league. You can make money. Um, and so a lot of these guys come back to the States because they're overseas for 9 months of the year, come back to the States for 3 months to be with their families and whatnot. That's during the off season, and that's when the tournament happens. And so, if you're overseas basketball player, if you're in a mid-tier league, you're taking home maybe at the time or maybe even now like 60, 70, 80K
Uh-huh.
playing basketball.
Uh-huh.
And when they come back, you have a tournament that's free to enter for $1 million. Of course you're going to be interested, right? And you're playing basketball, you're good at it, so you got a chance.
Yes.
Yeah. And so those are the players that are playing in this tournament.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, it's crazy. Like I don't know if do you remember Joe Johnson on the Hawks? This is old school
Yeah, of
Atlanta.
course.
Joe Johnston played in it last year.
Oh, what?
Yeah, so it's grown a lot. Obviously, there's always former NBA players that come in
Wow,
and
Chun,
play.
you and your friend are so cool.
No, we didn't play against them, but we were in the tournament that we
No, but
played. Yeah.
that's crazy. Wait, real quick, sidebar.
Yes,
Why
please.
why did you guys go with the name Kimchi Express?
That's a great question. So, at the time, obviously, we're proud of being Korean, and even in high school, I went to Sunny Hills in Fullerton, California. If people don't know it, it's basically Korea 2.0 in the suburbs. And legit, our high school was 50% Korean. Like it was completely backwards in terms of the demographics.
Yeah, like no
Uh,
lie, guys. It's
no, like
it's
dead
not like
serious.
Georgia.
Seriously. And so, our basketball team at the time was really good, and we were like mostly all Korean, and we are
Oh,
short. Like,
interesting.
yeah, we were short. Like the tallest player we had was 6 foot, but we were like the Warriors before the Warriors. Like every time a basket was done, like it's kick, and we go super fast. And like people will always tell us, like, like there's a bunch of like little Asian kids like running around, and we would be really good, and we almost made it to like the like we call it CIF, but like the regional like championship.
Okay,
Went to the
okay.
semis, but we basically had that MO as a high school.
Wow.
So we were proud of that, of course. But obviously, just being proud of being Korean American, and even during the time, it was crazy because to think back at it, this is like our student section would be wild, and so you know we'd be going crazy. And I remember this one playoff game; it stuck with me because I was basically the my senior year, I was the PEP commissioner for ASB, the Associated
Okay.
Student Body.
Uh-huh.
So essentially, I'm the guy that's leading the cheers in
Like
high
hypes
school.
the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, a hype
Yeah.
guy. But this was the semis in the playoffs, and right across from us was the other student section. And at a certain point, like we were getting killed on that game. That team was pretty good, but they started busting out chopsticks, and a dog mascot came out and was like roughing around. So they're talking like pushing tongue, like that vibe. And it
Are you
was,
serious?
yeah, it was crazy. I mean,
Okay,
it's
potion
wild
tongue
back in the
is
day.
like a dog that you eat. It's for people that don't
Yes.
know.
Yes.
And there is a stigma, I guess, with Korean people. I cannot believe they did that.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild.
That would never happen in Georgia, but I can see it happening there.
Yeah. And so like those little experiences, I remember like it bothered me, but it also made me even more proud to be Korean, and definitely
Mm.
being like a team that was full of Koreans, that were like playing and competing against like, whites, blacks, like other people that Koreans are not supposed to be competing against them on the athletic level.
Mm-hmm.
It created that pride. And so
Mm-hmm.
back to that Kimchi Express name, it was it was also kind of like a jokish name, but also like, hey, like, we can ball too, like we can compete too, even though we don't play pro ball. Like you can respect us in the way that how hard we play and things like that. And so
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. Um,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place, but I mean, like, even working in the industry as long as you did, like, was there a lot of Asian American representation?
No, definitely not. So that's why, I mean, again, I didn't shy away from that. It was more like I got more inspired to be like, hey, I need to um, spread the word basically, because, like I grew up again with a bunch of Koreans, and the Koreans that I grew up with love sports and love playing sports. And I'm sure that if they knew about the opportunities, whether on the business side or any side of things, and to be able to be working in sports, they'd probably take advantage of it. But I was thinking like maybe they don't, maybe they didn't discover that later on, or didn't have the, I don't know, the passion to go ahead and go through with it, because they just see like a white dominated or a black dominated industry.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's again more inspiration for me to like help paint that picture for other people, or like the next generation. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I am greatly appreciative of that. Um, for other young people that are listening to this episode is like, yeah, like why not? Why
I
not,
know.
you know? But sorry to kind of interrupt the story that you were telling. This is going long. Are you okay on time?
Yes,
Okay,
of
okay.
course, of course. Yeah,
Um,
sorry, I'm yapping
no,
today.
this is great. I love every single thing you've said so
It's
far.
so late for you, Blair.
No, it's good. I'm good. This is like my social hour, Chun. It's all good. Um, but uh so okay, what were you saying? You were saying that you guys played
Yeah, yeah,
and then you got dominated.
yeah, we did.
I mean, rightfully so. I
Right, it
mean,
makes sense. We weren't expecting less. Got free jerseys, got on TV, so that's cool. So
that's
that's
crazy.
yeah,
It's so crazy. And you can say
yeah,
that you played in that tournament.
yeah.
So like you said, so you mentioned that the tournament has gotten pretty big, I
hmm
guess,
hmm
since then. Um, and then after some social media stalking, I noticed that you guys started to recruit for your own team, like a different
Yeah,
team too.
yeah. So how that like evolutionizes, that first year we got smashed, second year we got smashed again, and we're putting in all this effort. And the second year was in Vegas, so it just gave us an excuse to be like, oh, we should do it again just to make a trip out of it. But after that second year, it was like, okay, we're putting in all this effort, and then it just like it's fun for like 10 minutes to see us running around, but then after a while, if you're getting smashed, you're getting smashed. So
Right,
like you don't really want to tune into that game. And then after that year, just realized like, dude, we can't keep on putting all this time and effort into this for the result to be like that. And so people were hitting us up after that second year, like because we were able to get a lot of votes again. People were like, oh, how do you do that? And so people kind of wanted to hop on some of these players. And so we started to realize like, man, we can actually get some players in and play on this tournament. And so we started recruiting. We just started sending a bunch of IG DMs to like every player out there to be like, hey, do you want to play with us? And it's so crazy that people would like the players that we got for that third year actually wanted to play for. If you look at our social at the time, it was crazy. Like if I was a player and looking at our social and looking at the team Kimchi Express and a bunch of like Asian like kids, why would you believe that this
right.
team is going to even have a team or play basketball or do something?
So like people agreed?
Yeah, yeah, we got agreements from, these guys are pretty like everyone played D1. They're playing overseas and they agreed. And it was crazy because we had no idea what to do. We had to practice, didn't know where to practice, didn't understand what to do. And the tournament was back in LA. And so we had a roster of 10 that we recruited. Um, but we quickly realized that, if there's no money or flights involved for the players, they're obviously not going to show up. So it sounds dumb like after the fact, but at the time it was like, oh, of course they'll show up. There's a tournament, of course they'll show up. But you know, if you're not going to provide the flights, you're not going to show up. If you're not going to provide housing or meals or anything like that, they're not going to
Holy
show up.
crap.
And so the day before the game, we realized these guys are not contacting us back, and we have 5 players that are left. And I just came off. I was technically on the roster. I took on the last roster spot, but I just had ankle surgery, so I can't even play. And even if I do play, it's like I'm giving someone a breather for like 10 seconds and then come right back out. No point being on the court. But anyways, um, that year happened and we actually won our first game with only 5 players, which was insane. It was so fun.
That's
And
crazy.
so
It's so
yeah,
fun.
it was
Oh my
so fun.
gosh.
And it was like, wow, it was like validation, like all that effort, we finally did it. We have pro players on our team. We're called the Kimchi Express with a bunch of like, it's myself and my friend Jay that's are the coaches, the 2 Korean like squids that are coaching on the bench. And yeah, it was fun. We won our first game and lost the next one, but it just showed us a lot. And so the following year, we really wanted to make it like big and like expand this vision basically. And so we reached out to, we wanted to get sponsorship because we can't pay this out of pocket. There's no way. So we reached out to a ton of companies, sent hundreds of emails, again, back to this like side project thing, and was able to get a meeting with BBGO and was able to sell them on what we were going to do and how we were going to do it
How
and the
did you get a
vision.
meeting like you just emailed them?
Just email them.
Oh man, I'm
So
inspired right now. I'm just gonna email people all the time.
yes, exactly. So if anyone doesn't get anything from this podcast, if the only thing that you take out is email someone, do it. Like you've got to just shoot your shot basically.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I got meetings set up with BBGO and like I know we were talking with Puchangdo Sundubu, like BCD Sundubu. That was pretty funny. Like it was like this Chinsen company. They're just curious on what it was because I think people like the Korean people understand the draw of sports, and I think even Korean industries are looking to expand their like advertisement and their partnerships.
I mean, yeah, like
Yeah,
the Lakers, like
yeah,
it's BB Go, and then there's another team that I saw recently is a Korean company. But anyways,
yeah.
okay, so you land sponsorship with BB Go, which is like huge.
Yes, yes. And so we we jokingly take credit for the Lakers BB Go sponsorship because before that we were the ones that had the BB Go sponsorship in the beginning, like in that summer. So we just joking like, oh yeah, the Lakers heard about it because of us. But
No, I
yeah,
mean, I wouldn't doubt that at all.
no, that's definitely not it. But yeah, I was able to get sponsorship, got some cash, and was able to run it back with this team and flew them all over. We the tournament was at Wichita, Kansas. So me and a bunch of buddies went to Wichita, Kansas to be in this tournament. And yeah, it was fun. It was fun again playing under the Kimchi Express name. But yeah, I mean the tournament's a tournament. That's kind of Kimchi Express and what it is in a nutshell. But I think what it allowed us to do, or allowed me to do, is understand again that this Korean community is so small, definitely countrywide,
Mm.
and the Korean community within sports is so small. So I was able to connect with a lot of people that reached out, or I reached out with like certain coaches, or there's a lot of Korean people, but also Asian Americans in sports that are doing like amazing things, but we just don't know about it.
Yeah.
And I just got this passion again to do something about it. And so we launched something called the Kimchi Family. And so I don't know why the kimchi is so involved with it. I think there's something with me, like people are always like, dude, why do you have to call it kimchi something? Why can't you call it like koram or song, like something, like Korean American something? But I think I really like kimchi because it also like educates people about like our culture. That's like our national dish. Like what the
Yeah.
heck is kimchi? Like educating them on it. And even like Kimchi Express side, like all our players, like being able to like introduce them to like mandu, like we brought bibigo mandu and they were to eat it, and like
Oh, I
kimchi and
saw
all this stuff.
that, the video of
Yeah,
that, them eating
yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Actually, one of those guys went to UGA. I
Go
don't know.
dogs.
Yeah, yeah. But
Who?
I don't think he's more recent. His name's Derek Ogbede. I don't
Okay, I'll keep an eye
know.
out.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, we started Kimchi Family, and it's kind of like what you do with When I Grow Up. We're trying to relaunch it a little bit. We took a big hiatus, but myself, and one of our coaches that we got from Portland, he's one of the high school coaches up there. We're trying to highlight Koreans that are doing great stuff in sports.
I love that. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah,
That is so cool. I'm like all about, I mean,
yeah,
I love
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Korean sports,
Yes,
like just
yes,
let's do it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Very cool. I mean, yes, okay, so all this to say, um, in order to do the things you love,
Yeah, definitely.
you gotta work somewhere.
Yes, yes, you have to work a 9 to 5.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah,
Um, man, I man, this conversation was so enlightening for me. I feel like, um, again, things that because I mean, I love sports, truly, but on just a spectator level, I did some production in sports right out of
yes,
college, which I really love too. It really gave me some behind the scenes kind of stuff. But again, the business side of it, I've never thought about because I never had to.
mm,
And it really is eye opening. And I know that's not what you do right now. I know that you work for Dropbox, which is also very cool, by the way. um, but I think it says a lot, Chun, like for you to be able to balance all of it and kind of and understand what your priorities are, what your goals are for yourself personally. And I think it can become overwhelming. For me, right before I did this interview, I was I was doing my QT,
I love it.
and it was talking about like um, yeah, like okay, this is so I feel like this is so off topic, but I have a point. Yeah, like the Lord is our light and our salvation. Whom shall I fear?
Mm,
Right? And I started thinking about this because I'm like, okay, I fear like rejection. Like I
mhm,
fear people turning me down. And it's something as simple as like, even let's take this podcast for example. Like I keep bringing up the email stuff because I don't like, everyone's like, oh, like why don't you like email like, I don't know, Jeremy Lin or whoever, right?
Yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's just like I don't like I don't want to.
Right, right.
But it's like the fear of like David's like, okay, what's the worst that could happen? He won't answer at all. Like I would rather him say no, right? But I
Yeah,
don't like when they don't answer, right? But then
right, right.
um as I'm doing my QT, I'm like being convicted, right? I'm like,
Mm,
no, like God is my salvation. Like there's not, why am I scared of anything, really? Like, and I know it sounds so silly in the grand scheme of things, but all that to say, I think you kind of speaking into that, right? Is like, yeah, I mean, just shoot your shot. What do you have to lose? And
mm,
when you do the things that you do love and are passionate about, God will open doors.
mm.
Like he will open the doors, and if he doesn't, then it just wasn't what you were supposed to be doing in the first place, I feel like.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
your story, your journey, for me, like personally, I'm like, yeah, like that's a testament of just shooting your shot, not fearing anything, and trusting that God's going to do it
Mm.
and not you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. I mean, it's true though. It's true. Amen to that. And I think I'm like the king of, I love these one-liners. And I love, like, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Classic one-liner. I love it. And yeah, I think that's what I realized even doing Kimchi Express and Kimchi Family.
Sorry, was
Like
it The Office? What is that?
was it The Office?
I think
I
Wayne
don't
Gretzky
know.
said like Michael Scott quotes Wayne Gretzky or something. Sorry, anyway,
No,
sorry.
I think it is Wayne Gretzky. I don't know.
Anyways, okay. Yes, but it's true. I didn't
It
mean to
is true.
interrupt your train of
No, it's
thought.
so true. We're all saying the same thing. But yeah, just going through that experience, like getting pro players, or even on the Kimchi Family side, like I don't know if people knew that the athletic director for Washington State is Korean. His name, yeah, like, and like there's a NBA coach out there that's Korean, and like Hyunjung Lee at Davidson, who's like a player that's going to be drafted in the NBA next year. Like all of these guys, this NFL coach like Eugene Chung, um,
Yes, yes.
yeah, like these people, they're willing to step up and help you out because they understand like where they come from. And
Mm,
especially for us too, like I feel like we have great leveraging power if you just, you know, reach out and ask. And you know, people are always down to help, people are always down to pay it forward. So
yeah,
yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for encouraging me tonight, Chun. I really appreciate it. And speaking of encouraging people, I always ask if you have any advice. I guess you kind of shared your advice just now, but if there's somebody that maybe heard this episode and is like, man,
Mm.
I have questions for Chun, would you be open to like me connecting you guys?
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm always down to talk. I'm always
Awesome.
down. Yeah, for
Awesome,
sure.
awesome. But do you have any other advice for those listening, whether it's like life advice or
Ooh.
advice about wanting to go into business or sales?
It's so funny because I grew up like not wanting to be, because my dad yaps a lot, like talks a lot. So I just grew up like, oh man, I don't want to be that like dad or something that's like talking a lot. But here I am. Feel like I've just been talking so much.
No,
But
I mean it's a
I
podcast, man.
yeah,
You gotta
it's
talk
true.
a
That's true.
lot.
That is so true. But I think something that I've been learning, and it's been more like reinforced recently, is the topic on kind of like money and the desire of money and status and
Mm,
your position. I think this obviously goes across like every industry, not even in sports, obviously, but especially when you're like post grad or even now, basically. And so the point is like, um, you know, money, it's going to be spent, it's going to be saved. Like money is money, it's an item, but what's more valuable to, you know, yourself in the long run or even the short run or any time is going to be how you spend your time and what relationships that you sow into. So
mm,
I would say to at least my younger self, like, plug yourself into a great community. Find, you don't have to have a lot of friends, but find, 1, 2, 3 friends that are really, you can run with, and find a mentor. That's huge too. Like, don't be the oldest guy that you're talking to, or don't be the oldest guy that's like in your group or in your circle. Like, you always have to be able to be coached, and there's people that have done it before you. So yeah, just how you spend your time and investing into relationships, then working an extra couple hours to make a few extra bucks. Like, that's not a long-term investment there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really great and sound advice. I really appreciate it, Chen. Um, well, guys, thanks so much for listening. You heard it here. If you have any questions for Chen, you can reach out to me. You can DM me through social media or email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com. Thanks, guys. Until next time. Bye, Chen.
Fight on.
Peace. Fight on. Go dogs. Bye.